Welcome all to the fruit dissection portion of this lab. So today we are going to dissect a few fruit, and preferably something like an apple, but I'm leaving it up to your choice. Okay, so we're going to talk about the basic structures of a fruit. Okay, up here at the top we see the stem. This is a woody structure that attaches the fruit to the branch. On the outermost layer we see the skin, this tough protective layer. The flesh, okay, this is a sweet part that we generally like to eat. In the center we see a core, which is a bit tougher, with the seeds, okay, embedded in that core. At the very bottom we see a structure called the calyx. Okay, so we're going to compare these structures to those of a developing flower. Earlier in the lab we talked about the structures of our flower. Okay, now we're going to see how they compare to these fruit. So the fruit structures actually develop from the ovary, okay, the ovules, and the bottom portion, and this fleshy part called the receptacle. So as our fruit develops, we'll see that the receptacle becomes the tough outer skin, as well as the flesh, the portion that we like to eat. And the ovary becomes the core, okay, the center section here. And then the seeds develop from those ovules, which were inside of the ovaries. Okay, that calyx that we mentioned before at the very bottom of those fruit, like this apple, okay, that's all that remains of the other flower parts. So for the most part, these male anthers and filaments, okay, the stigma, the style, the petals, the sepals, all of that dry up and fall off, leaving only this little calyx behind. So in the next section, we're going to actually dissect some fruit. So grab your fruit and you can follow along with me, or you can watch the video and then dissect your fruit afterwards. Alright, so in this segment we're going to dissect a couple of apples. Okay, I have two because I'm going to cut them in two different planes. So I'm going to cut one this direction, and the other I will cut this way. Okay, so materials, I have my paring knife, 2 apples, and my cutting board. Okay, so please be careful. So, as I cut this apple open, okay, we can see the tough, fleshy portion. Okay, remember this is the outer portion of that receptacle. There is the flesh, okay, the yummy part that's good to eat. Okay, you can see the core kind of outlined. So this part's a little tougher. That used to be the ovary. And then inside we see the seeds. Okay, those used to be the ovules. So at the bottom is our calyx. Okay, remember this used to be the other parts of our flowers that have dried up and mostly fallen off. Okay, if you can see it on this one, some of these are actually still kind of leafy, and you can actually see how they kind of look like it used to be the anthers. Okay, so this is our first apple. For the second apple, I'm going to cut it slightly differently. Okay, so cutting it this direction. So this allows me to see the organization of the seeds in here. I apologize, my apple is a little overly ripe. Okay. So in apples, the seeds are actually arranged sort of in a star pattern. So these used to be the ovules. Okay, the tough integument part is becoming the outer seed coat. Okay, and the embryo is growing inside of the seed, along with some nutrients that were packed up by the parent plant, and to help that embryo in its development. So I'm going to cut another segment and see if we can see the stars a little better. So not so much, but here's another seed. Okay. So, and remember, the inner portion, that core, is developed from our ovary. The outer portion is part of the receptacle, so this fleshy part that we like to eat. And then the skin, okay, is that tough outer protective layer. And the stem is a woody structure that allows it to attach to a branch. Okay, and apples are actually kind of upside down compared to a flower. So this is the portion where it attached to the branch, but if we think about flowers, they would have been facing this way, calyx up, as all the petals and other reproductive parts were sticking upwards so that the pollinators could find them and pollinate that flower. Alright, so if you were following along, great job. Take a minute to sketch what you see and label your sketches. Okay, if you're doing it on your own, go ahead and get started. Good luck, and I'll see you next time.